Perfect. Okay, unless you all have any questions, any thoughts before we get started, I can hand it over to Fabian.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Thanks, Cheryl. Well, hey, great to see everybody again. I'm excited to kind of show you what we can do from a Salesforce perspective in terms of Enroll's goals of, centralizing one core CRM, seeing the relationship that has between, things like Vertifore, RingCentral integrations. I'll do a little bit of a summary as well for what we heard in the last conversation. And you let me know if I missed anything, but we talked about a little bit about some requirements, Gabe, on your end of what you were expecting from the CRM, the ability to control custom fields, routing those custom fields, having required fields, the manipulation of the experience too. I know, Michael, you had mentioned that in terms of what you were looking to see is how, flexible the platform can be. We also heard things like Calendly and how we can maybe potentially consolidate that functionality and the way it intertwines with the relationship with things like Outlook, email integrations, and things of that nature. So we're going to be talking a little bit about those to start, and then we'll go into the demo as well. So let me know if I missed anything there, and feel free, as I mentioned before in the last call, I'm going to hopefully make this as interactive as possible for you all to leave this call with everything you need to make a decision and hopefully align with what you're looking to see. Please let me know if I missed anything. I know, Ben, we talked a little bit earlier about reporting as well. I have a fake demo org so that the metrics aren't really as easy to see, but we will be able to show things like pipeline by department, pipeline by a particular individual that is working on, let's say commissions and tracking things of that nature. So we'll do a little bit of that, and I'll show you how flexible the reporting mechanisms can be and what a future state could look like too. So you can see kind of the full range of possibilities that we have there, okay? I'm going to go ahead and turn off my camera so my computer doesn't blow up because I'm going to be showing a lot of different things. So, and I won't be able to see you. So just say like, hey, Fabian, raise your hand or whatever, and I can take a quick pause, okay? Alrighty. So the first thing we're going to start with, and let me know if you can see my screen. That's my dog.
We can.
We're going to start with the Salesforce Mobile App. And I wanted to show you kind of what it looks like from a mobile app experience. And what this highlights is really what we talked about earlier. You had mentioned to me, Gabe, that this is a problem point that we had talked about of other platforms that aren't as flexible with their mobile app experience. So what I figured I'd do for you is show you a quick homepage of what I drafted up in terms of, things that mattered to me as an individual that's an agent that's working with people that might be calling or reaching out to me. I can see, recent records and lists like Larry Baxter, who we'll talk about a little bit later, any relevant insurance policies that might be tied to him, as well as my calendar that can synchronize to my Outlook and Gmails of the world. So any upcoming events, you see things like this on my Salesforce events. This automatically links to my Outlook in my calendar. So again, that bi-directional sync will optimize the way that I see kind of what are the action items that I need to handle for the day, okay? And a quick caveat for this is that you can configure this view to be as comprehensive as you want. You can make it as simple as just show me my events for today, show me my upcoming tasks, or you could even favorite particular, let's say there's people that have policies that you work with often. You can set your favorite accounts or favorite contacts that you work with frequently. So this is really just giving you that full 360-degree view of what your day-to-day looks like. And again, this homepage can be configured to match whatever, visualizations or terminologies you want to look at. But if we get granular too with Larry Baxter, who we'll be covering in a little bit, I have the opportunity to see Larry Baxter's click to call, his contact information, his address, any key details. And again, this can be locked down via permission sets and roles too, so don't feel like anybody can log in here. There can be particular types of users that can actually access this information and others that do not have the mobile app experience available. So full control over that, and really it mimics what you'll see inside of the Salesforce environment. But I figured I'd start with that just to set the stage of what we'll be talking about today, okay?
Great.
Awesome. So now as we get kind of granular with some administrative things before we start the actual demo, I wanted to walk you through RingCentral's integration of Salesforce. I mentioned to you before, it's pretty comprehensive, and we don't have the opportunity to have a license for RingCentral to show you exactly how it lives inside of the org, but I figured I'd just do this quick video walkthrough with you. You have the opportunity to see kind of what it looks like from an interaction standpoint inside of the Salesforce console, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But really what RingCentral does, and I can send you these links so don't feel like you have to take screenshots or anything, it has a very powerful kind of in-app console that really pops up the way that you see it here. So this would sit centralized inside of your Salesforce org. No matter what page you're on, you can go straight into that and have it kind of pop up as a little window here. And you'll see here, they're calling Sarah Brown, that it actually automatically takes that individual to Sarah Brown's contact record. So figured I'd start with that just to show you how easy it is to leverage something like this RingCentral integration to Salesforce. And with this highlight that we're looking at here, we can create account notes, we can create contacts, cases, leads, things of that nature. And that can fully integrate to the Salesforce suite that we'll be showing today, okay?
Great.
A couple other things too. I'm going to send you all this. This is all really just showing the extensive reach that we have in terms of sales and service. So you're not just bound to service calls or sales calls. Really, RingCentral is one of the most powerful embedded, in-apps that work within the console. And these are some sample kind of audits or logs of what exactly it can and cannot do. So happy to kind of answer some questions on that front. And this is, again, the data sheet that really breaks it all down for you. And this highlights kind of also for Service Cloud what we'll be working with in a little bit. Okay, so just really helpful tool. And I figured I'd start there to set the stage around how flexible our integrations can be as a core platform. And on top of that, that's only one integration that we're talking about, right? If we now position or switch roles now to Vertafore and AMS 360, I know, Gabe, you had mentioned this is a very important thing to the business, right? This is a very critical component of the way you operate and the way you expect the software to talk to one another. I'm happy to let you all know that with what we'll be showing today, there's a very comprehensive, out-of-the-box Vertafore plugin that can be leveraged with Sales Cloud. And this is a quick sample of what you can and cannot do. So you'll have full integration to lead conversion. So if you're working in Vertafore, you need to create a new lead. You can create that all inside of Salesforce, and that can track automatically with Vertafore as well. If you have a contact list or you need to reassign accounts from, let's say, one producer to another, you can do so. And you can also track activities within the AMS system that can link directly to Salesforce, like what we're looking at here. So again, these release notes and all this information, I'm happy to send to you in an email after this call. But I wanted to show you how extensive our integrations can be to something like Salesforce because we have those connectors available. Okay. Any questions there?
Nope, looks great so far.
Awesome. And then this is a quick integration point feature just to show you the actual, behavior of the integration. So we can talk about that a little bit later too. But again, I will send this to you all after this call. Awesome. So I wanted to start with what the agent experience could look like. Actually, I'm going to start here at the service side first. And what I want to focus on here is there's some elements, if you remember, we talked about, there's a financial services cloud product that is dedicated to insurance. I'll point out what specific financial services cloud features are FSC and which are not. But at its core level, if I'm an agent, I can log into what I'm looking at here, right? If I assume that role of a service agent, this is what I see on my homepage every day when I log in. And it tracks things like cases by channel. Let's say someone called in versus someone created an email versus if you start to enable things like chatbots, someone initiated a case through there. We can start to track those various channels of engagement with Service Cloud that help optimize the way that I visualize what is outstanding, where are we getting the most traffic from, and what do I need to start prioritizing. I also have cases by type. So if there's a particular policy question, maybe there's one specific policy case that might pop up, and then another one is a renewal. You can start to segment out those types of conversations based off of types. We call those record types inside of Salesforce, and that has to do with cases that you work with on a day-to-day basis. So you can create as many of those types as you need to, right? So if you're working with a multitude of different aspects of the service, you can have the agent create a different category for each respective type. And these all obviously link to the different channels that people are requesting things from. So really what I'm looking at here on this homepage is KPIs. What are those key cases that I'm working on? What do I need to be working on today? What are some outstanding tasks that I might have, like what I'm looking at here on the right side? Today's events also synchronizes to my Outlook calendar. So it's letting me know that anything that happens inside of the system is being bidirectionally synced to Outlook and giving me that experience that I need to see on a day-to-day basis. Really, if you think about this, this is a 360-degree view of my business and my day-to-day operations. Any questions there?
Yeah, Fabian, I have one question. When you're looking at the action items, the tasks, or whatever else it is, and let's say agents just don't do that. What happens with those? Do they stay there until they're done, or do they disappear, or what happens with those if they're not done?
Great question. There's two ways that gets addressed, and I think that's you, Michael. I can't see, but what happens is that they turn red and a little flag pops up next to them. So on top of that, you actually have the opportunity to create automation too, that these tasks can be escalated to managers or people that need to see that. And you would create an email that could be automated saying, hey, these tasks are overdue by this person. and they need to be completed for this date, and this is the subject. So that's all flexibility that you have there to build out that experience.
Okay.
Hey Fabian, I have another question. So
Mhm.
I'm looking at, this is Ben, looking at the KPI metrics down at the bottom of your, well, not at the bottom of your screen, but right here in the middle with the meters.
Mhm.
That from an admin view, can we pull that data for the organization, but then also get granular down to the agents as well? Like, can
Absolutely.
it give an average for the enterprise? And then, sorry, I didn't clarify that question very well. So like an average for the agency, and then also granular details for each agent.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to cover dashboards and reporting a little bit later, Ben, but that's a great question. Essentially, I want you to assume in this use case, I am looking at my individual view, but then what
Yep.
we'll do is we'll rotate to the executive level view that can see the whole thing overall.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Great question, though. Another thing I wanted to highlight too is, let's assume I talked to you about Service Cloud as a whole, right? And when you talk to me about your model, what you're looking to achieve, it seems like there's a lot of interactions that call via that have to do with the inbound calling of a particular individual that has carrier or policy questions with an agent. So with Service Cloud, you have what we call Omni-Channel. If I'm this agent, I can set my availability to on, and you'll notice this now creates an opportunity for me to now be available, the available agent that would take a case in by someone that calls in, for example. So with Omni-Channel, we have 5 different channels of engagement. You probably saw that here. We have phone, we have things like Facebook messaging, texting, we have Experience Cloud, which is like a portal that uses a chatbot, and then we have email. So you can create, and as you start to expand your offerings, in order to create a better system of, let's say, self-service as well as a better agent experience, you can open up those multiple channels of engagement so people can send emails out. Maybe it only really needs to be an email, right? So they don't have to call in necessarily, but if you have the option to do so, to create that channel of engagement is what we call it. And with Omni-Channel, what I am essentially telling it when I turn this on is I'm saying I am open to accepting all cases from no matter what channel it comes in from. Okay, and you can create things like routing, and RingCentral does a really good job with this. That I encourage you to look at the configuration guide to show how flexible RingCentral can sit inside of something like we're looking at here. Does that make sense for everybody?
Yeah, just to clarify, we won't have to port over from RingCentral to
Confirm.
have
Yep.
the omni-channel. Okay.
Yep. Omni-Channel completely links to what you're working on. What really I wanted to show you here is that RingCentral will pop up like what you're looking at here. And then when you create that integration with Service Cloud, you're going to be available for voice, and then people will call in. And in that use case, and I apologize, my caller thing isn't working right now, but in that use case, let's assume someone calls me for a case on a policy question that already exists. This is the view that I get from an agent perspective of someone reaching out, trying to understand their claim details. You'll see there's a lot going on here, so don't be worried. You can actually configure this to be as simplified as you want. And it's as easy as this drop down that I'm looking at here at the top right that says edit page. And it's literally, you can click, remove these components, add them, drag and drop all over the place, no matter how you want it to look like. You have full capabilities there. The main gist that I want you to get here, though, is that when you work with these cases, if I'm an agent, I want to know everything and anything about the individual that's asking about their policy. With Service Cloud, I have the opportunity to see the case details, at what stage this case is on. So let's assume it's new, right? I'm able to leverage what we call guidance for success, that are best practices for an individual. Let's say I'm a new agent. I have the opportunity to go through my checklist of internal things that I need to make sure I'm doing before I push this to the next stage. And with these guidance for success items, you'll notice these things change dynamically based on what stage it's in. And you even have the opportunity to escalate cases if you require assistance for that individual agent that's relatively new. Okay, so
And that's customizable, correct?
absolutely. And you can actually create different paths or stages for each different
Great.
case type. So
Great.
fully manageable from that perspective. And it does a good job of managing that.
And we can pull reports from each of those areas, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And we'll show you kind of from a dashboard and reports perspective what that looks like. But I wanted to show you kind of what it looks like from the agent view, right? So that you can then start to understand, like, okay, I know I'm at with this stage. These are the best things I should do when I start to kick off this case. And what do I need to be doing from there? Okay. Another key thing about Service Cloud too is the opportunity to leverage what I call milestones. And this kind of ties into what you were talking about earlier, Ben. I think you mentioned the tasks and the outstanding items that have to do with, let's say if someone hasn't completed something, not only do you have the opportunity to do that with tasks, but when cases are open, you can set your own milestones and KPIs to show that, hey, Fabian as the agent hasn't completed this in a year and 10 months. Like there's definitely a problem there, right? And when you complete these milestones, these actually get tracked and turned to green and pushed through. And those actually reflect on dashboards and reports that I'll be showing you a little bit later. So as we start to talk about consolidating KPIs and understanding what the KPIs are for our company, this is super helpful for me because I'm now able to understand, hey, I'm not meeting my SLA times. I need to start reassessing what am I doing with these cases and the way that I'm managing them to fully understand what's going on.
Great.
Okay. I now have the opportunity to also see the key details of this case. So if there's particular people you work with, there are different channels of service that you can provide to. Let's say there's a top tier priority that you work with, low priority, high priority. You can manipulate these fields all based off of what you see here. And these are what comes out of the box. But if you feel, Gabe, that you need to add a couple more fields to create some processes or standardization around it, you can create new fields that go into this case information section, as well as create them to be marked as required fields to be filled out too. So as I mentioned during our discovery call, with the opportunity that you have with what we call validation rules, think about that as a fail-safe for you to not be able to push this to the next stage of this case until the proper information is filled out.
Great.
Okay. Now let's assume I'm working with, I've talked a lot about the case experience, but let's say, who are we actually working with? In this case, our contact is Steve McDonald, who's asking a question about his claim details. Let's assume Steve had a conversation for me that he needs to have around this case. I can actually see past cases that have to do with Steve if they matter, right? If he's done things or he's requested cases in the past. Because we're doing this all in Salesforce, what we're creating is a centralized source of truth, right? That no matter if Steve McDonald creates a new case or has created cases in the past, because it's all being optimized and done inside of Salesforce, all relevant cases that have to do with Steve will be tracked at his respective record. So it's creating, again, that centralized source of truth so that you can then understand, yeah, I know Steve, he's already submitted a couple cases. I can go into his historial and understand what were some other questions or concerns he had in the past. I'm also able to leverage the email integration that I talked about earlier, where let's say he's having a question about carrier information. I could actually include knowledge articles in this use case that I can attach to this email straight from inside of Service Cloud. So these knowledge articles are what can be available for me that, let's say, Steve asked this question a lot, right? I've already sent him a couple materials, but this time I'm actually going to send him a knowledge article and attach it to this email that I'm looking at here. And these email responses can either be, manually written out. You can insert things like templates that can really have a full array of different templates that you can insert to these responses. So these are just a couple sample emails. I just want to show you how you can input an email here. And what that does is that pulls the rich text from the fields that exist inside of the individual's contact record and pre-fills that out for you. So really helpful tool, because as we're doing this, right, we're not only talking to, let's say Steve's on the phone with us, and I say, hey, Steve, I'm going to send you a knowledge article that has to do with your question, and feel free to take a look at it whenever you have a moment. And then as I send those emails and I have those interactions, that's all being logged inside of this collaboration section that shows a full historial of all the recent activity that has happened with Steve. So you'll notice here that email that I sent out is also already attached to the case that I'm working on. Okay.
That is fantastic. And hopefully I'm not jumping the gun here, but can these be automated, and where does that show up in the history? If it does at all, can that be linked to certain aspects in the guidance for success section that you're kind of on right there?
Yeah,
so things
absolutely.
can't get pushed through until it goes through, or if that makes sense.
A little bit, but I think I understand what you're saying. You can create those fail safes, Gabe, where you can control, if I push this to the next stage, an automated email can go out saying, hey, we're looking at your case. Thank you for letting us know. That can all be fully configured for you to be able to automate. And again, with
great.
validation rules, you can't even get here unless, let's say, the details of this case or the status is changed to priority, whatever, right? So you can create those fail safes and those controls to make sure that that's all aligning with what you want to see.
Amazing. Yeah. And so the customer doesn't experience any unwarranted automated emails from a misclick or something like that.
And again, a key thing about the platform is that you have full control over as automated as you want to be versus as manual as you want to be, right? And that can be also a good thing and a bad thing, but typically what we see from a best practice perspective is people want to create basic standard level automation like what you mentioned, and they also want to create validation rules in place to make sure nobody's skipping any steps.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Of course. So as we talk about the case side of this, right, I wanted to show you what the service side looks like too. Because again, as you're working with this, right, I'm assuming you probably want to kind of grow your business and work on these outstanding policies or renewals that might be popping up. What I wanted to show you is the other side of the lens, right? We talked a lot about the service agent view, but what we can also do is with Sales and Service Cloud, create a kind of a centralized experience for different people that are working in different lines of the business. In this case, I'm looking at things like my pipeline, any agent activities of people on my team. I did have a dollar amount versus premium amount, so let me refresh my dashboard and show you those insights. But this is, again, what I wanted to show you, the power of the platform. You can create different views based off of different lines of business, right? So if I was that agent view, now I'm kind of more on the sales side of the view. And I'm looking at things like action items that I need to be working on for this month. Let's say there's 150 opportunities. Let's say there's some policies up for renewal. And then I'm leveraging things like Vertafore to help optimize the way that I reach out to those leads and work with those leads too. One thing I didn't ask you, Gabe, and I know you asked us about marketing content and conversations around that. Is there any active marketing campaigns right now, or is that something that you were all interested in working on in the future?
So we want to create content. So in the future, I'd say things like drip campaigns and triggered based events that occur within the system.
Got it. Perfect. And we can totally optimize that too as you start to get familiar with the platform. But one thing I wanted to show you again here is on the homepage that you have those opportunities to track those metrics and see what that'll look like. And then, Ben, I put a fake little dashboard here so you can see the dollar amount versus premium amount, because that's something you mentioned to me. But I wanted to show you the different looks and feels of these dashboards and reports that you'll be able to leverage as you go through this kind of Salesforce experience. And then, Michael, on your question earlier, in terms of how do I know what tasks are outstanding or what happens when the tasks are overdue, we have, again, a different style or a different flavor of the task mechanism to show us these are all the overdue tasks. You'll see the red highlighted here. And then I have the opportunity to go into the task that's outstanding for that individual. So really just it increases accountability, it increases visibility into these things too. And then again, as we tie this all with like a bow at the end, we have the opportunity to what we call leverage in terms of list views. And what I mean by list views is this is a full log of every case that exists inside of your system. And this can be done across cases. This can be done across leads, tasks, contacts. You can see insurance policies or claims once Vertafore starts to integrate. I just created a fake insurance policy in there because this is fake data, but you have the opportunity to leverage these list views to show you a full audit of everything and anything that exists inside of your org. So in this case, we're looking at accounts, right? You can leverage these list views to create different views that are filtered out with information that are relevant to the specific views that you want to be looking at. So let's say if there's a business account you work with, that can be a different view than that of a person account, which is an individual, right? And you can start to manipulate these views to track all the data you need to. With the RingCentral integration, you can click to call if you use it. It'll pop up kind of like you're looking at here, and then it'll save and log that call to that individual record that we're working with. So really what we've done is we've centralized the way you collaborate and you reach out to individuals and you work on those respective records too. That makes sense?
Quick question. Yes, that makes sense. Do you have the ability to export the historical data within an account? Let's say Andy Peterson, the first one there. Could you export the history of him and then provide that on a PDF or something of the sort?
Yeah, that's a great question. We do have a mechanism in place where we can do that. Let me get back to you, Gabe, if that's something you can do on this edition type. But I do know that that is available with our financial services cloud option. But I wanted to, I just want to make sure that we vocalize that because there's something that we have in financial services cloud that is called Omni Studio that can auto-generate documents with summaries of those respective individuals.
Amazing, thanks.
Gabe, was the intention to be like customer facing, like so when you're sitting in front of this customer to kind of give them a little bit of a history, or what was the purpose for that?
Yeah, so imagine there's a case where I missed the space button. Imagine a situation where a discrepancy occurs with a business who is sending their employee to get serviced by us, and the business is overseeing the transaction. And our side is saying something different from their employee's experience, and therefore we want to clear up the error and ensure that service was rendered appropriately and in a timely fashion, and just kind of prove what's going on.
I see. Okay. More of like a compliance and record keeping standpoint than anything for
Very much so.
Okay. That makes sense. I'll make a note of that.
Thank you.
Awesome. Great question, Gabe, and great use case too that we can highlight at some point as well. And tying it to that specific use case, let's assume Larry Baxter is the individual that calls us, right, and one of those businesses that you work with sent him to talk to you. What you will have with Sales Cloud is the opportunity to visualize with that vertipore information any policy information that's flowing into Salesforce. So you'll have the policies active here that are available and at your disposal for you to visualize and understand and see, along with the key details of Larry Baxter. So you can see things like if we had marketing campaigns with him, these are the ones he was involved in that we sent content out to. You have the opportunity to see all the conversations and interactions that have happened with Larry Baxter. If, let's say, I want to send him an email or track kind of information aside from cases that I'm working on with him, I can send him an email straight from Salesforce too, that this automatically links with my Outlook. So I mentioned to you a key thing that we talked about a little bit earlier about consolidating your softwares and your tech stack. One key thing that we can do here is we can kind of create the Calendly equivalent. Let's say I just want to create a follow-up meeting in this use case. Calendly does a good job of creating scheduling links and all that good stuff. We also have the opportunity to give you that functionality within Sales Cloud too. And this just comes with Sales Cloud. It's not an add-on product. What I can do is I can set my availability for Larry Baxter to pick to meet with me. And you probably saw this with Cheryl when she met with you. You create the sample template email that you want to send out. You select some times where you're available to meet, and you subsequently send that out straight from Salesforce. And this automatically links to your Outlook calendar. And there's no added cost to this specific functionality. It is just what sits inside of Salesforce.
That is very cool.
Yep. We have I showed you kind of available times. We also have the opportunity to create a scheduling link. And let's say I'm on the go and it has to be quick. I can just include my next 3 available times. And this actually gets included in the email right here. So really, if you think about, if we take a step back of everything we're showing, right? We've showed you the different looks and feels of what Salesforce can do for you and your experience and what you're looking to get out of a CRM. More than anything, what this does is, again, this centralizes your data. So as you start to grow and scale, everything that matters to your interactions, to the key details about the claims, to the calls and cases that are having to do with individual people that are reaching out is all tied together in one piece and one central source of truth for you to look at. So really what we're doing is we're optimizing all this for you to visualize and do what you need to do more than anything on a regular basis. All right. I know I'm a little tight on time here. I don't know. Is it 9:41 or 9:31? Oh, I'm sorry. My watch is.
Oh no, it's 12:31 right now. We do have the full hour. So
okay, cool. Yeah, I don't know why. Like I looked at my phone and I guess it froze. It said 9:41, so I was a little bit confused. But
it's very
okay.
disorienting. No,
yeah,
it's
I was so confused. Okay, awesome. So we do have time, and now that we have that time, I wanted to walk you through the dashboards and reporting in terms of KPIs, what you'll have. And another cool thing too, Gabe and Ben, that you can look at, and I'll send this in the data sheet for RingCentral. RingCentral actually has performance reporting that's available for you to see within Salesforce. So you can visualize the data about RingCentral calls, amount of calls, minutes being spent by individual people, and that can all be sent in the data sheet that I'll send over to you all. So you're not only going to have.
That was one of my questions, is if we had, because it seemed like the data from RingCentral fed over into the Salesforce hub, and so that's super neat.
Yeah, totally able to do that. You'll have things out of the box that are available for you to start with. There's also, I think, some automation that they've already built out in what we call a package or a managed package with our integration to RingCentral. And reach out to your RingCentral rep to see like if there's any added cost on their side, but on our side, we can just take that in and integrate with it. I don't think there is, but again, I can't speak for RingCentral in terms of that integration capabilities, but all the things that have to do with Salesforce's connection, integrations, you'll see here kind of a quick screenshot. And again, I'll send this over to you all later. If there's a case, someone calls, you can have the case details pop up with the respective person that's calling, and that's all full functionality that's available now. Okay.
Great.
Now, as we start to talk about dashboards and reporting, I know this is important. With Sales and Service Cloud, I've showed you 2 kind of dashboards. I wanted to get into the service agent dashboard really quick, just to show you how flexible these dashboards and reports can be. You're not bound to just one dashboard. You actually have the opportunity to create multiple dashboards for different levels of executive alignment. Let's say you want to have a manager view versus a CEO, COO view versus an agent view. Those can all be manipulated and configured to track not only metrics at the individual level, but at the company level overall as well. So you'll notice here, I'm looking at a KPI dashboard for just a basic service agent. But if I jump back to my list of dashboards, I can actually go find what we call an executive level service dashboard. And what that does is that actually pops up with those service KPIs that we're looking at. So if we're looking at the service executive dashboard, We have service agent here, right? Just very basic level, what's going on, what are cases by channel, how's my team doing in terms of bandwidth. I actually have the opportunity to now look at a service executive dashboard that not only tracks things like SLA, KPIs, but I can even filter this out by respective channel of, let's say, show me only things that have come in by phone with a specific type of request and with this agent. So Ben, for you, this probably matters because this is going to give you a full view of not only the business, but people at an individual level as well.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Very
And then,
digestible. I like that a
yeah,
lot.
very digestible. And we actually have a very cool thing. And I always do the plug for it because I'm our analytics expert, but we have what we call CRMA, which is our more dynamic, interactive service console. But I think from the perspective based off of what we talked about in the past, I think we'll get you all started on this first, and then we can explore that in the future as well.
Okay, so that's an add-on what you're referencing right now.
CRMA is an add-on. This is core reporting and dashboards. This comes with Salesforce as it is.
Okay, great.
Okay. Now, let's assume I'm happy with I'm happy with the compliance. I'm happy with the cases by priority. I'm happy with the average handle time and things of that nature. And I'm sorry, this isn't refreshing. I don't know what's going on. But let's assume I'm not happy with the first contact resolution. It's nice to have these views and dashboards and all these cool components. But what if I want to get granular with the data, right? As an executive, I can now jump into this direct report because each respect tile that we're looking at there is actually a report. So I can get granular with the data and go in there myself and understand what's going on here. If I know my contact resolution is pretty average, what are we doing wrong to understand how we can optimize the way that we're reaching out? And when we go into the actual reports, guys, as we're looking at this, we're now starting to see a full historial of all the cases that have come into our system from within Salesforce. Let's say there's not really a metric that matters to me here that I want to understand. I can edit this report and dynamically view the content that I'm previewing as I'm going through these respective filters. So let's say I want to say the units in minutes instead of hours. I can apply that, and this is dynamically changing with those metrics that I want to be looking at. And instead of all cases, I want to just show me cases with things like queues, and I can talk about queues in a little bit, but think about a queue as like a dedicated group that is specialized in one specific, case type. We can then segment out by queues, and then this dynamically changes based off of what we're looking at. And again, this reporting capability isn't just at the executive level, it's across all of Salesforce. So if you have agents that really want to understand how they can improve or how they can be better with the resolution time, they have the full flexibility to get in this and understand where they're kind of underperforming.
That's great.
Okay.
I like that.
Sounds good.
Awesome. And then
That gives us some good, historically, transparency from like for open tickets, and the resolution time on our end has been difficult to export and share. And so this seems to be an answer to that current issue that we're currently facing with some of our external partnerships. So that's
absolutely
great.
Yeah, and the nice thing too is that you have a great dialer system in RingCentral. So what it's going to do is it's going to really optimize the way that you interact, not only internally, but also track those KPIs, right? So you're going to be able to dynamically change these dashboards based off of maybe there's some reports that you like on the RingCentral side. You can drag and drop those components in here. So you're really, again, from a management level, getting the full 360-degree view, not only of the customers, but of the business itself.
Great. That's awesome.
Hey,
Alrighty.
That is good.
hey, Ben, just to follow up on this topic, I mentioned before that we want to maybe export the individual history. Is that something that is actually pertinent to your mission, or is this sufficient for that exporting need to show service?
So you're asking if are you asking if it's satisfactory for the time being, or this? I think this addresses the concerns that we have. Sorry, I missed the first half of what you were saying. But
Yeah. No, when I was talking previously about, let's say that there's a single account, right? A person who's called in, got enrolled, and there was a discrepancy with that person. Do you want to be able to export the history of that interaction? Or is it sufficient to just have the SLAs and the KPIs be exportable and shareable to these business partners?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, realistically, when we have specific issues, the only time our service time or resolution time comes up is when there's been a specific case that is either been prolonged for whatever reason, or we're experiencing another issue. And so to answer your question, I think exporting the timeline or the timestamps of that specific individual's updates on that specific individual's case would be great. I think, big picture though, going back to the client, if they're unhappy or they feel as though there's issues within the relationship due to service time, we can, export the overarching data, the big picture, and say, hey, look, maybe in this case we've had a slower resolution time, but the overarching message that we want to be able to portray is, hey, look, the KPIs say that we've been 98% of the time been able to resolve the issue, within the SLA agreements, or the SLA metrics. And so, I don't know, I think being able to export both would be great, but is that plausible?
I think Cheryl was going to get back, or Fabian was going to get back to us, but I mean, we can pick this up later, and we can discuss.
Yeah,
but
yeah, I'd like to throw in my 2 cents there, because there's, and this is, again, as we talk about scalability, our priority is to get you something that can get you going right away, right? But in short, I'll give you 2 answers. The first one is, yes, we have obviously our financial services product that can create those summaries and subsequently export them. It doesn't mean that you can't create them in Sales Cloud. You can also do that too, just maybe might require a little bit more work, or some kind of working with a partner that can help kind of create that automation that you're looking for. And then on the other side of that, with generative AI being such a big imprint now on everything that we do, there is something generative AI focused that can automatically create a summary in seconds for the entire individual. So that's stuff that we're happy to send you content on. But again, as we start to talk about scalability and the approach here, I want to talk to Cheryl. Our priority is to get you what you need now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And make sure that you're aligned on what you need to be doing every day. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I think one little final thing I just want to show you, Ben, because this can be kind of implemented, in conjunction with what we showed you. I wanted to show you really quick an insurance agent console, kind of that financial services product. This is what you would consider. I always equate this. I'm a big Formula One fan, so I equate this to the Ferrari, right? I showed you kind of what the Prius looks like. But when you start to work with actual kind of interactive data and more dynamic views and dashboards, you can get as granular as what we're looking at here with CRMA. And you'll notice these things are broken up by heat maps, by regions and segments. Wow. You can look at things like top agents. If there's a particular policy type that you want to get granular with, you can look at the specific segment of that individual that you're looking at, and this dynamically changes based off of that data. And this is all Salesforce data that it's pulling, so it's giving you kind of that 360-degree view of the business overall.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
Very nice.
We mentioned Salesforce was the Ferrari before this meeting.
I was going to say, Fabian, you guys are before. I would say Salesforce as a whole is the Ferrari. So I don't know what this is. This is a step up. This is like the Brabus package on a Mercedes.
Yeah, yeah, it's the Ultra Tokyo Drift like sport package, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I wanted to show you, I think the reason why I'm doing this is to show you that when you start to build scalability and you start to build the platform out, this is somewhere you can get to, right? And it's our responsibility to get you in the right spot to start and create the proper foundation. And this is typically what we see from an individual person standpoint. We're looking at Rachel Adams in this use case. You look at things like predicted churn risk. What is her attrition? Does she want to cancel her policy? We can see the active policies and claims information too. And this is where the Vertafore integration can get even more granular with other products that we have. But this really just shows, again, that full 360-degree view of an individual, along with all the other core things that exist inside of Salesforce. Okay.
And Fabian, I think maybe just to make sure that it's clear, right? Just the distinction between what Fabian is showing you right now versus what we started off the demo with. Yep. So when we started the demo, we showed Service Cloud and Sales Cloud. Those together is what you would call CRM. It's covering both sides, right? The sales and service side, but all based on the same data in one customer 360. Fabian is showing Financial Services Cloud right now, which is essentially built upon that foundation of CRM, the Sales and Service Cloud. But it has, this was maybe in 2015, Fabian, that we rolled out Financial Services Cloud. based on, since, we're financial services focused, we found that there was a lot of commonalities in the various sub industries of financial service, namely insurance, wealth management, banking. And there's certain components and certain customizations that were very frequently used by those types of customers. So essentially it's a customized layer that sits on top of the foundation of our CRM, and with a lot that's already built out for those specific businesses. And so Fabian wanted to show you the capabilities here just as an introduction. Full disclosure, it is more expensive than our Sales and Service Cloud offering. But we at least wanted to let you know what the options are, and that way, you can make a decision, with full information.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah, very important to denote that. So thank you, Cheryl. This is the Ferrari, right? And this is what we showed today, sales and service. And based off of our conversation, I know we spoke quickly last week, but this seems like a better fit for you right now. Doesn't mean you can't get to the other point, but I think the focus should be on optimizing the way your agents handle cases that are inbound. And this is more than enough to get you started.
Yeah.
I agree.
All righty. Anything else I didn't cover today? Anything you'd like to talk about? I know I threw a bunch at you, but appreciate you walking through this with me. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions that might pop up. And we will send you this content for the RingCentral integration, the Vertafore integration, any other integrations you're curious about or have questions on. Just shoot us an email and a note, and we're happy to answer that too.
Great.
Yeah, Fabian, I want to know if it's appropriate to ask this, given that you're not technically at the partner level, right? You guys are high level. What does the customization portal look like? Where can automations be tweaked? And things like that from like an administering of the system.
That's totally fair, and I'm happy to work on that with you. So if you think about what you mentioned, Gabe, the customization standpoint comes in three major categories: the look and feel of things, right? The automation behind things, and then the control over who can see what, right? Those are the three pillars that I typically like to talk about in terms of the flexibility you have on the platform as a whole. The first we're going to talk about is visualization and just control of, what I mentioned to you before, clicks, not code. I mentioned to you how easy it is to modify this homepage. I'm going to modify this homepage because I feel like I don't like a component that's at the top right. This is what it looks like to change a page layout and a page view. And it's as easy as, let's say I can move this and drag this down, right? Let's say I don't want to have this list view on my homepage, and then I can save that down and activate it, right? That's what we truly mean by clicks, not code. If you notice, I didn't code anything. I didn't go build anything custom. I have a full array of tools on my left side here that I can drop things into. So let's say a popular thing too is company-wide notifications. I can drop something like a rich text here that will say, we will be off for Wednesday due to holiday, right? You can drop that, save that down, and then put that straight in the component like what we're looking at here. So it's really, in terms of customizations, full-fledged ability to do this, and you can do this at the account level, at the homepage level. You can create things like custom apps, like what I mentioned to you before. You have the ability to create different views for different agents if you want, and those can all be controlled via roles and permission sets too, right? In terms of automation, I'll show you what we call the flow builder. And I don't want you to be scared by this because this is stuff that, I'm self-taught with Salesforce. So a lot of this is like very, hands-on and easier to learn visually. But with the flow mechanism, which is how we build automation within the platform, you have the ability to create flows and also use flows from the past too. So you can clone them, delete them, create new versions of them. But let's say we want to add a lead to a call. We can just go into the specific, flow and understand the nature of how we build that automation. So again, I can't emphasize this enough. It's really clicks, not code. You're not building any custom visualizations. And yes, they get more intricate, right, with the type of automation that you're building. But really, this is to show kind of this platform. You click into elements, you modify them, and then save them down. You're not really, coding anything. It's very if-then criteria that you build around that. So these are a couple examples of how you do that. And one final one that I'll show you is, let's assume we want to add a field to an account. If I go back to where we were in the past, let me just get in there really quick. I'll just go in here. We want to go into this individual account, and let's say there's a field that doesn't exist. I can go ahead and go into this actual account, and we call them objects, right? Because every object holds a piece of data, right? And an account object is different than that of a lead object, which is different than that of a case object, right? So these are all things that you can work on over time as well. But let's say there's fields that I need to add or manipulate. I can just go into these layouts and change them, and they're dynamically added to these individual kind of objects that we're working with. Okay, so let's assume
That is really cool.
Yeah, so if I go into the account object, right, I want to add a new field. Let's say these are all my list of fields that are available. I don't feel like there's one that aligns with what I'm looking for. I can create a custom field, and these are all the options I have to add the field. In this case, let's say we're going to create a simple checkbox, and we're going to do something like is insured. This can be unchecked. And then a help text, that'll be a pop-up that shows this is what the question. So check if individual is insured. We can set that to next. And then one thing, Gabe, that you'll see here that I'm about to click on is requiring this field to be filled out. So when we do that, what that means now is that this has to be saved down with a data point for any account going forward. Otherwise, it will not save. And then you can control the visibility of all these different profiles. These are all fake, so don't worry. You're not going to have this many. But we can set it to visible and read only, have full control over things like that, and then again require that for any individual that we need to have. So really, it's just creating full flexibility and control over what you want to see, and that's the beauty of the platform overall. I know that's a very long answer, but did that answer what you were looking to see?
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you for taking the time to show that. Yeah, that clears up a lot, because I can imagine, we use a partner to get started, but down the road, it'll be very appropriate for someone internally to adjust this, and making sure that that's doable is huge, right?
Yeah. The best partners also teach you. They're not just doing work for you. And Cheryl will make sure that she gets you aligned with someone that is kind of experienced in your field and looking to build with what you're looking to build.
Yeah, that was actually what I wanted to mention here. Unless Ben, Mike, Gabe, you have any other questions, I can just chat a little bit about our next steps. But I just wanted to see if there's any additional questions from you all.
I don't.
Does this feel like? Yeah, Fabes, great job. Thank you for showing that. I think, one thing we want to make sure is that, does this seem like something that will fit the needs of your teams, right? We want to make sure, like, this, of course, is very high level. Fabes did his best to customize it to what we talked about last week. But of course, the purpose of a partner is to go through a discovery with you, really understand the specific experience that you're looking for your teams, and then put that in practice, right? So just want to do like a little pulse check here to see if this is something that seems like it could be a fit for your team.
I would say yes, but that looks like a good fit.
Yep, I agree.
Fabian did a fantastic job. So thank you for the excellent service on taking
It's
our
all because of you, Fabian.
bring it into
anytime. Yeah.
Okay, don't inflate it that head too much. But yes, Fabian is great.
He deserves it.
He really is great at listening and hearing and putting it into a great demo. So so I think that, I will definitely want to introduce you to, maybe a couple partners that you can talk with to just understand and feel comfortable. But internally, we have, a lot of trusted partners that specialize in certain industries. So I'm happy to make an intro. And then, of course, they can walk through their process. I know, Gabe, you had mentioned in our first call that there potentially could be resources from Levitt, but wanted to see how you're feeling there.
Yeah, I didn't reach out to determine whether or not availability was, it could be allotted to this project. Or resources could be allotted to this project. Sorry, and I could do that, but given the timeline, I can't imagine that would be the case.
Okay.
But so potentially that's a maybe.
Okay. And so I have a few partners that they have packages like a quick start. So from my understanding, you're not intending to migrate data at this point, right? You're starting that new. So I think that typical quick start packages with our partners are meant to be, budget friendly, but also get you started quickly. That's part of the name. And then they usually have certain things that they set up, some dashboards, reports, certain workflows, automations. They have a list of things that are pretty standard to get a customer up and running within, 3 to 5 weeks time. There's typically some buckets of training hours in there and that kind of thing. So that's just what I wanted to share with you. But in the meantime, I'll do some research on some recommended partners that you can talk with.
Great.
Yeah,
That'd be great. And we are looking forward to the pricing call on Friday as well. That's a huge factor in this decision. And I can't imagine it's not competitive.
Wait, I'm sorry, what was that?
I can't imagine that it is not competitive. So like the pricing, I'm sure would be pretty in line with what we've seen with other CRMs. But then again, you guys are the Ferrari, so.
Yes, we will. So there's a couple factors that go into our pricing. I'll bring you behind the curtain a little bit, right? So I think, Gabe, when I talked with you yesterday to validate the timeline, right? Because that's a big component when I go to get a proposal approved is this customer looking to move forward this month? Because essentially we approve, or our deal desk approves pricing on a month-to-month basis. So any pricing that we show this month would not carry over into the following month, right? And so that's one big component, and that's going to work in your favor. If we're working on a quicker timeline, of course, then I can probably get a better price for you there. Also, that what figures into it is quantity of users and potentially quantity of products. That actually is a question I wanted to ask you. I think, Gabe, when we first talked, you were thinking about 20 users. Is that still on track, or where are we with that?
Ben, Mike, the
We're
exact
probably closer. We're
users,
probably
but
closer to 15 right now.
Okay.
We're going to push up to 20, but we're not there yet.
Got it. Okay, I will make a note of that. And then I think that was it that I needed from just to validate for pricing. If there are other questions in between now and then, please let me know. We want to make sure that you guys feel comfortable and that all your questions about the solution are answered. So again, don't hesitate to reach out.
Great.
okay.
And I'm going to
Thank
drop
you.
these links. I'll shoot them over via email for everybody to look at. And Cheryl, if you can send that in the follow-up too, we can get that over to the team.
That sounds great. Excellent. And I will share the recording as soon as it's processed so you guys can look back at anything and share with any teammates that were curious. But yeah, looking forward to speaking again.
Yeah, look forward to it.
Amazing.
Perfect.
Thank you guys.
Thank you
Thanks,
both.
everybody.
Appreciate your time.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Sounds good. Take care. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.